citizen, mwananchi, were saying, wacha akufe huko ndani. And they were completely reluctant to rescue these police officers who are trapped in their vehicle. So it got me thinking, what is happening to the soul of this country that is leading to this almost insensitivity towards certain people? And then obviously we had the Matiangis of this world hooking up with the Kalonzos and, you know, and Rigiji of this world talking. We'll be looking at that and other stories in a couple of minutes or so. I have in the studio Matthew.
Yes.
Wesonga.
Thank you.
Karibu sana.
Asante sana, Fred.
Yes, and George Ngaire also with us in the studio.
Thank you very much for having me, Fred.
Shockingly, and maybe we can start with Mheshimiwa Were Omondo.
Yes.
The guy is assassinated. I don't know whether this was meant to be a joke or not. He's assassinated at the city mortuary roundabout.
Yeah.
He's shot, killed, and the moment it's announced, people back home and people from that area start celebrating. And you wonder, Allah, what has been happening? And then now stories start coming. You literally come from that area.
Yes.
What in the world? You can probably paint a picture for us why your people are celebrating.
Oh, okay. First, I would love to render my sincere condolences to the family and friends of the late Sir Charles Ongondowere MP Kasipul, and to the entire people of Kasipul, Kabondo, and the entire nation for the loss of the MP. You know, what's happening that I saw on the social media, I was even surprised. This has been, really, there have been some accusation of political violence in that area.
Connected to him?
Yes, connected to him.
Yes.
If whatever we are seeing on social media is anything to go by. In fact, I heard even on a clip,
yes,
whereby there was a guy, one of the leaders,
yes,
complaining on the violence being melted on the people of Kasipul. It was more like a political violence between the supporters of MP Ongondowere and his opponent. Yes. So when now this happened, it was a time for those who were opposing him to celebrate and say, now justice has been done the natural way. But as that may, I don't think it is nice, or rather in any way, to celebrate the death of a human being, despite the character of that human being. When, you know, culturally, as Africans, when someone dies, you don't hold grudge with the dead. So you just let him rest in peace.
Question is this, there are quite a number of things that the people who are protesting or celebrating are alluding to. There's a lady who went to see him in his office, and she's never been seen since.
I think what I can say, Fred, is that if you look at what was going on the social media, this will be a wake-up call to the political class. Because now Sir Charles is dead and gone, but we are those who are living, and the politician, we should learn one or two from what is happening. Okay?
Let me ask you, because you know a lot. You're moving away from answering. What was there violence on the ground in as far that as far as you know?
Yes.
That whether rightly or wrongly attributed to him, was there violence on the ground?
Yes, violence. There was violence on the ground. If anything we had is there was violence on the ground. But you know, in politics, I cannot authoritatively say that this violence could only be related to Sir Charles or the opponent. But there was violence. You know, and that is why I was saying, when there is such kind of political violence, it is the duty of our law enforcement officers to ensure that we don't have such violence, and because we are a country governed by the rule of law. My
concern is this.
Yes.
And maybe you'll address this. There is an MCA who was also killed or died.
He didn't die. I think he was just shot. From Homa Bay.
Shot.
Yes, from Homa Bay. Yes.
He was shot.
In Nairobi. Yes.
He was shot.
Yes.
And at the same time, if you listen to the conversation that is going on, he is also alleged to be a gang
Of the late MP.
Yes.
Yeah, you know, that's why I'm saying these are just allegations. What we can say that from the ground there was some element of political violence from the ground. Okay, so it's now coming back to our law enforcement officer to ensure
Just
that.
hold on, now I've lost you on my camera. Let's take a short break. I sort that out so that I can be able to see you on as you're talking. Let's sort that out. Sorry for that. We now have you back on the camera.
Thank you,
yes,
sir.
I was talking about an MCA who was shot.
Yes.
So, and again, from the conversations that are going on, this is again an MCA who is said to be very violent and has also groups and probably connected to the MP.
You know, these are just allegations, Fred.
Yes,
I'm not saying in the aspect that I'm supporting the violence or whichever way.
Yes.
But if you look at what happens, when Sir Charles was shot dead here in Nairobi, there was some kind of celebration. This is a guy who was loved and hated in equal measures. This one was also alluded to the political violence on the ground, which is true, because there were people who have been killed. In fact, there was a time, there was some allegation that a bodyguard to the former Nairobi governor, Evans Kidero, you know, Evans Kidero comes from Homa Bay County, was killed by the gang of the area MP. These are also, these are just allegations that I cannot confirm or deny. Okay, we leave them to the law enforcement officers. And what I'm saying is that if you look at what was happening and the kind of talks coming out after the death of Sir Charles, it should be a wake-up call to the political class and even to the law enforcement officers, because the big question people are asking, when all these things were happening, where were the police? Where were the people who are mandated to protect the lives and property of the common mwananchi?
Not just when they were shot,
but
when the people
because this thing did not happen in a day. It has something that has been happening repeatedly. So the big question is, where were the area law enforcement officers? Where were they when all these things were happening? Okay, not only in Kasipul, we've also witnessed some kind of political violence in Migori County. Whereby there was a time that some motorbikes were burnt down by supporters of Uriri MP and those of the current governor. So when all these things are happening, where are the police? Okay? We are in a day that we cannot allow the political violence to continue in this country to affect the lives of common wananchi and our youths.
And Gaire, do you get, if you look at this trend, do you get concerned?
Very concerning, Fred. First of all, my very sincere condolences to the family of the late Ongondo Were, and of course the people of Kasipul Kabondo. Anytime we lose a family member, it's always a sad moment, and I believe it's only fair that regardless of the many other assertions that are coming out of this incident, somebody has lost a father, somebody has lost a husband and a son. I think it's only fair that we pray that they have the strength to be able to go through this particular sad moment. Secondly, is that the issue of murders and assassination hasn't been new. And the last 1 year, I must say, since last year, June, we've had too many tragedies to count because of what's happened in the country. Some of them are just the organic criminal incidences that are normal in a society where criminals operate, but others have been largely politically instigated, and others have been state instigated because of, for example, the issues of abductions and things like that, where allegedly, state operatives have been alleged to be the ones conducting such things. In the end, there's a human being who actually loses his life, and therefore, it's an alarming rate for any country to get into a gangster mood where people can easily, much less talking of an MP who is a guarded state officer, you understand?
Yes. He's supposed to have a bodyguard, right?
He's a guarded
But
state
even
officer.
at the point of death, he was with the bodyguards. Yeah, if the preliminary report by the police, he was with the bodyguards and the driver.
Yeah.
When he was shot.
Yes.
And then the bodyguards were never able to tell. Anyway, those are facts of the case.
Exactly, and you cannot.
But if you look at the event,
Yes.
it was a well planned assassination. Yeah. So
Given
those-
that's for sure. It
yes,
was a planned assassination.
In fact, I can say that the whole thing did not even take up to 1 minute. These guys were just planned to get even the guards unaware.
Yes.
So as they were just carrying out the thing, the guards get you unaware, we do our deed, then sure. Within 1 minute or less than, the whole thing is done.
The main concern for me, Ngaire,
Yes.
is the fact that you can almost, I mean, if I was an investigator, I
Yes.
would connect this back to what is happening in
Yes.
Kasipul.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the first suspicion that would come. The violence that has been taking place connected to him.
Yeah.
There's a woman who has disappeared
Yes.
completely and believed probably not to be alive because she went to his office and after that completely disappeared, gone out of
the
us
picture.
without a trace.
Yes.
And there are other people who've been, injured by virtue of this. It gets to a place whereby the people have been saying, we have gone to the police. We have done everything with the police. But this man is still roaming and his gangs roaming without, with impunity. And I want to connect it now with the police.
Yes.
This van carrying police officers rolls. And the police officers who are on the front of the vehicle are trapped
Yes.
under the vehicle and they are crying, asking for help. Wananchis are passing and you can hear people saying, wacha wakufe, usiwatoe, wanalia nini, and then somebody says, utawatoa alafu kesho watapiga mtoto wako risasi. There seems to be people have given up the courts ever helping them, and so it looks as though if you're connected to this government or you're a thug,
Yes.
Then you are on your own.
Yes.
Fred, absolutely, and that's why I was trying to give a background information to it. Never mind, there's a life that has been lost, and I've already narrated how it's always a sad moment for anybody to lose a life. Even some of the worst criminals, when they die, their people shed tears because they had parents.
Yes.
You're a father, Fred. Your daughter remains your daughter, isn't it?
In fact, the scriptures also say the death of a sinner is a very sad thing to the Lord.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
But you see, where we are now is that we have a nation which has now totally embraced, unfortunately seems to be embracing this kind of incident. So you become numb. Fred, when you're exposed to extreme violence, it reaches a point where it becomes normal. Where when you look at these countries which are at war every day, they see bullets and guns and bombs every day. A bomb could explode somewhere and somebody could continue sipping his tea because
It's just a normal
it's
thing.
become,
Yeah.
it's a way of life. And unfortunately, our country is heading to other direction, which then points to what my brother here is alluding to. Then where is the police? Because all this, regardless of what the cost is, it could be political, it could be personal between the MP and the other factors, local politics, and as far as the local politics is concerned. But in the end, a human being has been killed here.
Yes.
And the institutions which have been mandated to be able to protect this, because the role of the police, the role of the police is to ensure there's law and order and that justice is delivered to whoever. It could be this MP or any other people that are played around there. That is where the country is, and clearly the mood of the nation is very clear, that people are not very happy with what is happening in the country, and much worse even at our leaders, because this was a leader that has been killed, and even more worse because of the police, which is the state, the hatred against the state that has been building over time. I think the Gen Z movement was just a tipping point. I keep saying that if we were to work on if we were to go with what happened last year in June, then and we do not contain or address the issues that are concerned now with the people that could make human beings react the way you are alluding to, then we are headed into some of the worst times. where somebody could sit and watch another person being beheaded and just be able to smile, which would be a tragic place to be as a people.
Let me explain to you a situation that happened in Nyeri.
Yes.
That has gotten, and that gets me concerned because of the state of heart of Kenya. This young man is standing on top of a five-story building.
Yes.
And he's threatening to commit suicide or to take his life. And he's standing there contemplating. And the people on the ground
are encouraging him.
Are telling him, jump, jump. In fact, they're telling him in Kikuyu, jump. Somebody has even the guts to tell him, you jump, the angels will catch you. And the young man jumps. And then, you know, he hits the ground and dies. When he jumps, that guy says, oh my goodness. And then he starts laughing.
Sorry.
As in the insensitive. The young man has died.
Yeah.
And suicide is all about mental health. This person has died. You've encouraged him to jump. Telling him, jump, angels will catch you. And they're laughing. Yeah. They're telling him, you jump. He jumps, falls to the ground, dies. Yeah. And this guy who's recording starts laughing. Calling the guy a kehe.
Fred,
an uncircumcised man. It is another thing.
Fred, 20 years ago in a criminal law class, my lecturer then, Mr. Kiari, taught me about, in criminal law as a unit, they taught us something about temporary insanity. That sometimes as human beings, there are times when moments come and your state of mind is not normal. And you end up acting in a manner that is not likely a tragic manner. And you can be able to plead that in court. Yes. You know, you remember the instance of the young man who had a girlfriend in Eldoret from Thika here, and then he went to see the girlfriend. They were not very okay. Then she came back. Then it's purported that the girlfriend had another boyfriend, and the young man left Thika and went back to Eldoret. Broad daylight at midday, bought an axe. Lunchtime when everybody's coming for lunch, waits for the lady walking out. When everybody's seeing, not at night in some corner. Yes. In broad daylight, and kills axe and just hacks the lady when everybody is saying. And you can imagine such gruesome murder. And then you ask yourself, could this be normal? Then you mentally, then those who know the issues of mental sickness and mental health, you would agree that it was not normal. Fred, what you're saying about the incident in Nyeri and even the one of police officers is not a normal human behavior.
It's
to see normal. It's not a normal human behavior to see a human being go down. And so it explains what I'm saying, that the country is in a certain state, where people are kind of fed up with life. Those who are taking out and those who are also celebrating to see state officers survive. And that if we do not address it in record time, then we are heading towards a very tough time as a country because of what it could lead to. I pray that as a people we need to go back to the foundation of this country. And those of us who are Christians, because we're Christians because we are followers of Christ. And when you look at the teachings of Christ and as Christians, is that we need to go back to the foundation of rebuild the foundation of our country so that we can have a new generation of people that can at least have a heart and address the issues, both from the leaders and the civilians as well. So that's my take. I think it's a sad place to be, but I hope we can come out of it.
I think before I comment on that young guy from Nyeri, on the police, the story you said about the police van rolling, we are just 2 years to the next general election. The political temperature is beginning to boil up. Our criminal justice systems will wake up, because it's like the people of Kenyans have completely lost confidence in our criminal justice system. That is why you see that they've seen police officers as their enemies, okay? And not forgetting that these people, apart from being police officers, they are still our brothers and sisters, their mothers, fathers, within the society. But now the criminal justice system have completely failed the people of Kenyans to an extent that they don't have any confidence. And this is so dangerous, taking into account that we are just going into election, just 2 years to the next election. So that if things continue the way it is, Fred, we might just have the worst violence, post-electoral violence in 2027, looking at how people behave about this government. If by any chance, this government might just find their way, rig their way back to power, because I don't see them getting votes. But if they can rig their way back to power, and with the kind of situation and the mood in the country, my friend, we might find ourselves in a very awkward situation that nobody will love to find themselves in. So I think it is the time for the law enforcement officer, specifically the IG, the Inspector General of Police, to be that independent body it's supposed to be.
Do you even on paper? On paper, obviously, it is possible.
Yes, but on
to
ground,
be independent.
yes,
as an Inspector General in Kenya.
Yeah.
But where the rubber meets the road, the situation on the ground is very different.
That's why we differ. That's happened to mambo uchemuka.
Yeah, because take for instance, this situation just the other, there's a land case that is going on
in Agata.
Yes.
Yes.
And we have police officers with arrows,
yes,
embedded in their body.
Exactly.
One in the head, the other one in the stomach. But the police are the ones who are being criticized for shooting.
No, what I'm saying is this. What we are witnessing now, because of these extrajudicial killings, there is some kind of hatred
towards the police.
Okay? And however much, even if the police are wrong, but people will still criticize them because of that hatred. You know, Fred, if you hate someone, you will never see any good in that person.
True.
Truth be told.
Yes.
So that is what is happening now. Take in the case of that of what was happening in Agata.
Yes.
Okay, Narok. The police were wounded.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
But by the end of the day, nobody was talking about the police.
Yes.
They were talking about the 5 civilians who were killed by the police. Which in a clear circumstances, the police will say that, okay, we are harmed.
We were
just defending ourselves. And you will not even argue further, because actually you'll see police are wounded, some are injured, some are in the hospital.
Yes.
Okay? So at least you could say that this was maybe a matter of exchanging fire here and there. They were defending themselves. Okay? But the hatred the Kenyans have developed towards the police, maybe because of their previous behavior, is what will be a major concern by the Inspector General of Police. Because by the end of the day, unlike KDF who stay in the barracks, these are police officers who will stay within the society.
On a daily basis.
We interact with them. So this tells you that even if tomorrow a police officer is in danger, because by the end of the day they will not work in groups. You might find yourself you are alone. If a police officer is in danger today, nobody will come for the rescue of that police officer. Look at what's happening in Kasipur, the celebration from those who are after the death of their area MPs. The allegation on the ground says that there have been reports by the police of the violence.
The people reported to the police.
To the police.
And they claim the police never did nothing.
Never did anything to them. So that can tell you that they don't even have confidence with the police. The people, we are going in a situation whereby citizens will start taking law into their own hands. Tumekushika tunamalizana na wewe hapa. And that is a very sad state. So the Inspector General of Police and the criminal justice system should wake up and bring some confidence to the wananchi. Fred, my main concern is that these things are happening, then we are just approaching election.
Yes.
And when we are going to approach election, we know how the political temperatures and what happened during the campaign periods. So by the end of the day,
it's eroding the confidence of the people in this institution.
Exactly. Okay, and it is very dangerous. Okay, again, when you look at that young man who committed suicide in Nyeri, this thing, we are now having a country which is depressed. Okay, because tell me how a normal human being can celebrate when the other guy is dying.
It's just...
Is it normal? Is it normal, Fred?
It is not normal at all.
And they didn't even try in any way to offer any kind of assistance.
They were laughing.
In fact, they were it was like it's just a normal thing.
There was no remorse.
There was no remorse.
The guy hit the ground and died.
Then,
that's the time the guy started.
Then
he expressed a shock, a short shock at Allah.
So you are serious?
Laughing.
Then you kumbe ulikuwa serious? So you are serious? You wanted to die? Okay, it's okay. Okay, bye. Rest in peace.
Now Imagine these are the people
Yes.
you're interacting with on a
daily basis.
When
So-
you get into a matatu,
Yes.
the huge percentage of the people in that matatu are in that state.
Yes. So you realize that we are in a situation whereby what we will call every man for himself, God for us all. Yeah.
And it takes something so small to
So small.
spark.
And even as we were talking about the kind of a situation, if you want to tell, and I want to call out the political class, the people are not happy.
Yes.
You hear that comment from that MP.
Even Atwoli yesterday told the president.
Yes.
The ground.
Sio kuzuri. No,
The ground seems zuri.
but even on death,
Yeah.
if you look at that guy, that MP, I don't know, he's from Wajir or somewhere in the northern part of the country, who said that people will die, we will sympathize and move on.
Yes.
And this one is a comment coming from a member of parliament just after another member of parliament have died. Okay? And if you can see that the hunger around Kenyans, if you go to social media and what people are saying, can also be so much attributed to the expose by the BBC.
Yes.
So that's why I'm saying, as it is now,
By the way,
there's
a
the
possibility.
hunger we are witnessing on the ground is also attributed to the expose by the BBC. So what I'm saying, it is time for the political class, the criminal justice system, to sit down and reflect. Okay? Because it will reach a time whereby people will just not care.
And if you can remember in history,
Yes.
I think it is during Maria Antonina.
absolutely. In France.
In France,
Yeah.
where there were demonstrations because the country was mad, people are hungry and everything. And she's told, guys out there are protesting. Why? They don't have bread.
Yes.
And the question she asked, why can't they take cake? Because she's protected in a place where she's enjoying the goodies of the land, where the majority of the people are not. She was murdered by the same people.
Exactly. And Fred, I think you remember sometime last year when, in fact, on that day when we had the Gen Z demonstrations, and we were live here with you.
Yes.
And then after that,
Yeah.
I was heading to another media station, and so I had to go through town. And town is when things were boiling around that midday, when towards 2 p.m. And town was something else. And because of the chaos in town, we couldn't drive into town. So we went through this commercial street, the one that the old Kenya Polytechnic route. There's a bridge there,
Yes,
going there,
yes.
because it was risky going
Go
into
through town.
through town. So we decided, let's go through that place so that we get to the access bridge, then we can just walk through into town. And that's what I did, and with a bunch of other friends of mine. And then when we walked through City Hall, because that's the route you go through Times Towers and
Yes,
City Hall,
yes.
I saw in person the young Erickson Chalo, the young man whose head was blown out,
Yes.
because they were at that Kimathi,
clock.
the Kimathi
Statue.
statue
Yes,
there,
yes,
just
yes.
between Hilton and Corner House.
Yes.
They were there among others. You know, by then they had not built up to Parliament side,
Yes.
because that's where the crowd was building. And the young man was there. So we bypassed him, and then we did what we were supposed to do. Later on, because he was in white, it was very easy to identify him.
Yes.
Later on, when I went home, and now there were trending pictures of this young man whose head has been blown up, and it became a very sad story of that struggle. And then watched the president in an interview later on, some days later. The president said that the police did a good job. If you are a parent and you love your child and you're wishing him the very best, and then you're able to sit at home and see his head blown up, you'd be a very angry person. You understand? Regardless of what the circumstances are.
Yeah.
And it is even worse when those who are supposed to be held accountable are able to speak in a tone like that one. Fred, it would naturally result to a very, very bitter and a hostile nation. And that is where the country is, because even the police officers that were there in Parliament and were shooting randomly at these unarmed young men who were there with journalists.
Yes.
Remember, when you look at the exchange,
Yes.
there were armed police officers on this side,
Yes.
but on the other side it was journalists and the young men. You
Yeah.
understand?
Yeah.
And it was like blatant shooting of those young men. And then you hear a year later, not even one single police officer has been totally held into account. They only were able to IPOA was able to take in 2 or 3, a few who were seen like the cop that was seen shooting Rex, allegedly shooting Rex Omolo,
Yes.
the cop, and just a few of them. But there's a bunch of many other leaders who are supposed to be responsible, including even the county commander of police then, Adamson Bungei, because he was in charge of that operation. Not even one single inquiry as to what happened to that state. You become helpless, and so the only other option is to take the law into your hand. Fred, I've told you that countries have collapsed, not because they love collapsing. It's when there is no justice system that you can run to. When the judiciary is corrupt and can't be accountable, it means there is nowhere to take your grievances. So your only other alternative
So you
is
have
to
to
come
protect yourself.
and settle scores in the manner that now, listening to my brother here on what is happening in Kasipul Kabondo, probably there are many other political issues. But Fred, there's also somebody can take advantage of the circumstances there and also settle a different score.
Yeah.
You could have just maybe robbed me my property, but because you have a fallout with Alan and everybody knows that Alan is your opponent, I take you out and people just say he's the one doing it. So there could be a lot of issues around that. But Fred, that's where you get to when the justice system is not very clear, and when people do not see like they can be able to get that. And I think I pray this president is able to read the mood of the country, Fred.
Because as a leader, because we're talking about leadership, everything, the buck stops with him. He needs to be able, as a leader, to do everything in his part to try and instill confidence in the institutions.
Absolutely. And when that's why I'm giving you an example, and I've said it many times, Fred, I'm looking at all the countries that have collapsed. I've told you, when people realize they are unable to get justice from structured institutions, then they decide to do it themselves. Then you have the kind of mood that we have in the country today. And it seems this president is not, ultimately is the leader of the country, and he has enormous power of being able to bring radical changes that could actually be able to bring law and order into the country. He has that, you understand? When Kenyans are saying we are struggling with the cost of living, we are not happy with a bloated and corrupt government, this president just needs one executive order and is able to restructure government and cut down those costs at a go. You saw what the Vietnam petroleum boss said about when he's meeting with the president here and the team in Kenya. He said that they talk big, but when it comes to execution, there's no execution culture of what they say. You understand? That you have a country, Vietnam as a country has a market of 100 million people. They've been able to build an energy supply of almost 74 gigawatts, but Kenya at 50 million, we're still struggling with 4 gigawatts or something like that. And he was alluding to the inept leadership that is there in the country, and that the leaders there just, they're all talk and no action, you understand? So, Fred, that's where we are as a people, and I pray that all of us as a people, because the leadership of this country is not just the president, it's all of us in different roles. There's the church, there's the civilians, there's
you as a father at home.
Exactly, and the roles we can play to ensure that at least the country heads towards the right direction. Because you do the way my brother Wasonga is saying, we cannot head to a general election with the kind of mood that we have today.
But you know, even if you are saying as a parent you have a role to play.
Yes.
All these things bring me back to the political class and the failed promises.
Yes.
When President William Ruto, as the head of the nation, was doing his campaign, he promised people heaven. There will be no extrajudicial killing, only to witness people being found somewhere in Kware, in Embakasi. Okay? He promised Kenyans that police will be independent, and even after getting into office, he decided to get the funding from the police from the office of the president. Unlike when Uhuru was the president, you remember the funding of the police and everything.
So now the police has control of its own
budget, which he says that now by doing this, we will agree that the police has got their full independence. But we are seeing exactly opposite. Okay? So when Kenyans try to connect this, the false promises, you know what, Fred? Even in our homes, if you keep on lying to your wife, do you expect to stay peacefully with this lady? Even if he loves you.
Nobody will believe what your wife will not believe what you
in fact,
I will buy a plot.
Yes, then he will be like, okay, sawa. So you realize that, it is a norm. bro. It's normal. So that is exactly what is happening. The failed promises by this government has even triggered the hunger in the people. You tell us this, then you do the exact opposite. So people cannot. That is why you realize everywhere the president go, people don't even take him serious. Even whatever he was saying yesterday, nobody took him serious. Because people were like, hizo ni uongo zake za kawaida tu.
And let me
Truth be told, because we are in this country.
Yes.
And now
just to piggyback on what you said.
Yes.
Did you see the numbers at the rally yesterday, at the meeting?
There was no...
It was
the Labor Day
celebration.
Yes.
I mean...
The interest is gone, Fred. Let's not lie to ourselves.
And you see, this being an Atwoli thing, Atwoli is a great mobilizer.
Absolutely.
So he can be able to mobilize. But if you looked at the crowd, the very meager crowd,
and even the mood of the crowd, don't even bother. Even the few who are there, look at the mood on the crowd. There was no joy in their faces, because to them, you know, Labor Day, all along, Labor Day has always been some kind of a very jovial mood by the public servant. Even those working on the private sector. Because they know that, okay, it's Labor Day, by the end of the day, the president will say something good about us. But now, come this year, even those who are attending this Labor Day does not even have confidence, because they were like, ata kisema, will he do it? You know? And
then Labor Day celebrated at the time what Rigiji and other people have been saying.
Yes.
The pay slip has been raided so much.
Exactly, by the taxes. So I think this will be a wake-up call to those in power. Because by the end of the day, they might not have this feeling that they are untouchable.
Yeah.
Okay? They might not have that feeling that we are comfortable. My friend, you are not comfortable. Okay? I will say this. If you are the only rich guy among the many poor people, it is only a matter of time before you become poor.
So you
exactly. So if you are rich, if you find yourself you are the only rich guy among the poor, you must think of how you can empower them so that you can even secure your own wealth. Because if
your security
will depend on how you empower this guy so that they don't look at you as their problem. But if you decided to become selfish with your own self, my friend, they will invade you and it will be a matter of time before you become poor. Just like them. And that is exactly what is happening now. The president and those who are in power are just sitting comfortable, thinking that everything is okay. But let me tell you, they should read the mood of the people on the ground and wake up and say that everything is not okay.
But when you look at the mood in the country, it's almost going to a point where it becomes them versus us.
Exactly.
Us versus them.
Yes.
Which is a very dangerous situation.
Which is a very dangerous situation.
Yes.
And that's why I was saying, my major concern is that these things are happening when we are just approaching election. And as my friend George says, some people, some few individuals, that does not even necessarily mean well for the nation, might decide to take advantage of the situation to create more chaos. Okay? Those who I'm saying, those who are in power now should now think of something to do about all these things. Okay? We've seen people are regrouping. As we speak today, Matiang'i is in Kisii. For the first time, maybe he's going to launch his presidential bid. Okay? We are waiting to see what he's going to say over there. What if some few selfish individual who does not even necessarily love this country decided to take advantage of the situation to put this country into a mayhem? So, our criminal justice system should be independent as the way they're supposed to be. And ensure that this country is governed by the rule of law. Whereby everybody, because in this country there is nobody who is above the law. We are past that era whereby there were some individuals who are being seen as they are above the law. But as it is now, nobody is above the law. And the law should be applicable to everybody. So that we don't see the hunger like what we are witnessing now. Talk of the political violence. Go to Migori. There have been a series of political violence. No serious action have been taken. There was a time that they banned some motorbikes.
Yes.
Okay? There was a time that a member of parliament was going into a church. They raided that church. Okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
In Migori.
Exactly. The same thing happened when Rigathi Gachagua was going to a church. Okay? And we've seen his meetings. There was a time Rigathi Gachagua was on a podium with the Senator Methu, and a tear gas was thrown just next to Senator Methu. And the police didn't even say anything.
Yeah.
So all this thing
is giving birth. You see, it is easy.
Is painting this country in a very bad picture.
Conceiving a child and giving birth to a child.
And raising the child.
Is an easy thing.
Yes.
Once the child has grown and has developed a life of its own, it becomes very difficult to stop him. These groups, these gangs,
yes,
in Migori, where you have Mheshimiwa Were, because the number of people, in the scripture says, in the witness of 2 or 3 shall every word be established. There's video of him taking a gang, people coming out of his car, getting into a vehicle, into a hotel, attacking a political opponent, and injuring the opponent, and going back into his car and them leaving. So the question of him having a gun is not in doubt.
It's no secret.
Yes.
Yes.
So people give birth to creatures that ultimately eat them up.
Yes. It's like we are feeding a giant.
We are feeding a mongrel that is growing.
And as we are doing this, it's sad that those who are mandated and enjoying the taxpayers' money to protect us are nowhere to be seen.
So let me ask you, if you are the president, and I'll ask you the same thing. If you are the president, the mood of the country is where it is now.
Yeah.
If you are the president and you are, say, the church leaders, because we are dealing with the moral now, it's getting on morality now, where the hearts of men have become so cold that they will see somebody jumping and they tell him, dude, you're wasting our time. We are here. We are recording. Give us content. Ruka haraka.
Iko TikTok.
Yes, they are recording you. The police, the vehicles, people are recording and talking. Munalia nini? And the police are, this is somebody's mother.
Fred.
And somebody's wife,
yes.
sister, you know.
Fred, you know, the president as the leader of the country has, all of us can do something about it, but the president has the highest leverage of what he can do for the country. People are not angry just because of that, of wanting to be angry. There are reasons that lead us to why people are angry. And most of them are basics. So it's important that the president takes the country back to basics. We go back to a convention, an urgent one. Kenyans are able to list up the issues that they have, the issues that they have. Then we have what you call a drastic action plan to address the grievances of what the people are saying. If people are saying the cost of running government is too much, cut the cost of government and make it small. If people are saying that you're not taking care of our basics, reroute any saved funds that you get that to go back to the basics so that people can be able to eat, be able to take care of their kids, be healthy, and have at least what you call a gainful source of income. That one, Fred, then it reduces the people who are, remember that day I was telling you about the demonstrations on the streets during the Gen Z, and I was telling them, if these kids had jobs, they would not be on the streets. Yes. They would have reported to their workplace. Majority of them will be watching on TikTok waiting for action, and there will be no action because most of them have something there. You understand? So because there is no alternative, that's why we are in where we are now, isn't it? So the president has to take us back to the basics, and it has to be radical. It has to be it has to be immediate so that we're able to contain it before we get into a general election. Because if we get to a general election with such a mood, Fred, the day the people will defeat the government, it will take a long time for Kenya to come back into order. You understand? All those countries that we've had in Africa, sometimes you celebrate. You know, there was an uprising in Egypt. There was an uprising in Tunisia. In Libya, you know, Gaddafi went. But since Gaddafi went, Libya has never been the same. Yes. Because the people then, there was a collapse of law and order because people knew we can defeat the system anytime. So One time we plan a coup, we kick out Gaddafi, then my brother here now plans how to kick me out, then Fred is also planning to kick out. Yes. And so the country is constantly, which is happening in South Sudan. Yes. You know, the fall of al-Bashir, who had been there for 20-25 years, brought in a government. But that government, there was a fallout. That's why we have now the remaining part of government in Khartoum, and then we have the rapid support forces of Hemedi in the bush, in the same country. You understand? So there's another process. And we all witnessed the rebel movement in Sudan, in Nairobi, creating another government, saying this is the government of the people of Sudan. Yet there's an existing government in Khartoum. You understand? Those things happen because people have now known that we can challenge the system. And you do not want to be in such a situation, because then nobody else will survive after that. And it will take a long time to be able to recover. You realize Kenya and Tanzania is the only country in the East African region which has been fairly stable since independence. Yeah. Because Uganda had almost 5-6 coups before they gained some stability. Ethiopia, even today, we still have the Tigray Liberation, TLF.
In Uganda, it was only during Museveni where they have a democratic election.
Absolutely. Before that...
In democratic...
It was only during...
And before that, it was coups upon coups upon coups. Yes. In Rwanda, President Kagame came in by coup. You know, it was a military operation. In Congo, as we speak, we are not sure if Tshisekedi will reach December.
Actually, the US, this world is so strange. Tshisekedi, just to take you off a little bit, Tshisekedi goes to America, to Trump, and tells him, I'm going to give you a deal. Yeah. I'm going to give you a deal that you can come and mine the resources in our country, the soil, you know, minerals. We'll give you that deal. One condition: M23 has to leave our country. Trump tells Rwanda, get your forces out of Rwanda and get Congo. The M23 out of DRC. America is now planning how it's going to go to the DRC. So Rwanda is going to be kicked, Rwanda, Uganda are going to be kicked out of the DRC by US forces. So it's...
and that's the case, and it's the same story in Somalia and in Ethiopia. You understand? All those countries are in trouble. But Kenya has been fairly stable. So you do not want to have a president, particularly this particular government, that has now entrenched the culture of meddling into the affairs of other countries, creating extra enemies. You know, we have internal enemies, which is our life challenges. And then now we're creating other opponents on the side and on the outside. Fred, this president has to go back to the drawing board because he has the highest leverage. All of us can do something, my brother Matthew, but the president is in a much better place to recondition the country, to put it back on a much safer place so that we do not have a fallout or a breakdown of our...
Just briefly, Kalonzo Musyoka, Matiang'i, because I can see our time is spent. Kalonzo Musyoka, Matiang'i, Rigiji, Eugene Wamalwa, JB Muturi, Linturi, Martha Karua. In a meeting, as you said, Matiang'i is today in Kisii.
Yes.
And then there are now talks by your former party that they will have a candidate in 2027.
Yes.
Giving jitters to the government.
Yes.
Jatelo.
Yes, I think to comment, if you give me a minute so to comment on the question of the president. As someone who received intelligence report from Nyumba Kumi to the CS Interior, to the National Security Council, the president is surrounded by so many advisors and advising him on nothing. So if the president today have to change, the first thing he should do is to fire all the advisors, even the one he appointed recently.
If they are not giving him the...
No, they are not, because, okay, the big
question... JB Muturi and Linturi all said, we would tell the president, but he does his own thing.
Unless they are not advising the president, is the president advising them. So if that was the case, then maybe we will excuse them. If the president was the one advising them, then it's a different story. But if they were the one advising the president, then they don't deserve to hold those positions. Because they've been advising the president and there is nothing changing. Now back to what you said about the regrouping of the opposition. To Kenyans, and I want to tell Kenyans that these guys have got nothing new to offer. Okay? And for us, let us not fall into this trap of same monkey, different forest.
True.
That is what is going on. If you look at that group, those are people that has been here again and again. They've been in government, out of government, in government. Did they offer any solution? No. None at all. Okay? Matiang'i was the interior CS. During this is the time that we witnessed the most extrajudicial killing.
A lot.
Okay? A lot. Okay? So what solution did he offer to Kenyans? None. Rigiji was the deputy president for 2 years. Only could manage to speak after he came out of government. What happened when he was in government? Nothing. So, in fact, if you look at what these people are saying, I don't see anything new coming from these guys.
Do you see Raila on the ballot 2027?
That will be the worst mistake Raila will do ever. Yes. If today anybody Baba is, he should just retire or rather support anybody else. Coming into 2027 is the worst mistake Raila will do ever. And no, in fact, majority of people will just see him as an enemy. You know, too much of something is sometimes dangerous. Okay?
Okay. Because of time.
Fred, in a free democracy, Honorable Raila Odinga and the 60 million Kenyans are free to run for any political seat. Baba can even run as an MCA in Bondo.
Will it be a wise decision?
There's no wisdom here.
No,
it's
no,
a constitutional right.
politically
Yes, politically speaking.
Is it a wise decision?
But he's a Kenyan and every
No, leave alone the Kenyan part, George.
Is it a wise
Yes,
decision for him
just
to
say
buy-
a yes or no. Leave
Fred
alone
has
the
been
politics.
traumatized many times with Raila Odinga on the ballot. I would pray he doesn't, because it has always been ended in tragic results.
Yes.
But I think he still has a right to be able to run.
But even if Raila has the right to run, just as I wrap it up, if we've seen it that it's somehow become like a norm. I run, we go to demos, I go into government. So the confident again that
Yes.
people we had in Raila and that is gone. So I think
So if he runs in 2027, we are confident and we can take home is that he will lose and then we'll go to
and have another handshake,
and then
you know,
he will go back into government.
what Raila should now do as a state held man
Yes.
is to gather the respect, the little one that remains,
Yes.
and now build his legacy, go home and rest. We will go him for consultation as young politicians.
I cut Ngaira short. Your closing comments.
For me, as all I've said, no Kenyan makes a mistake by going to the ballot to choose his own leaders. But once we have leaders, we have a duty to be able to hold them to account.
Yes.
And Kenyans should keep vigil to ensure that they get a value for their vote.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Gentlemen, we got to bring the curtains down on this show. The thing that concerns me the most, this political hula baloo, those are things that will come. The thing that is concerning me the most is the soul of the country. The soul of the country is becoming cold, whereby the citizenry is becoming cold to things. MP Were is killed, people rejoice. I don't want to go to the scriptures and quote something, what the scripture says. Because the scripture says, when the righteous prosper, the city rejoices. And when the wicked perish, there are shouts of joy. That's what the scripture says. But my concern is there's a cold wave sweeping into the hearts of Kenyans. People are becoming cold. When people can celebrate, when a young man commits suicide and people start laughing. When a police van overturns and they are injured, police officers are injured under the vehicle, and the citizenry doesn't want to help them. And they're telling them, let them die. Because if we rescue them, they will come out and shoot our children. There's something that is happening in the heart and the soul of this country that ought to concern every one of us. And mostly so the leadership. Leadership in the political, leadership in the church. Something is happening, and what is happening is not a good thing. Because that simply means, if you have an accident today, the people you'll trust to come and help you are the very cold people who are laughing when that young man committed suicide. Something has to change. That's what leadership is all about. Let's see what happens, but I believe the church can do something. Let's see what the political class is going to do. Because if the citizenry make their move, it becomes unfortunate.
Very true.
It becomes very, very unfortunate. We've seen an instance, a glimpse of what can happen when the citizenry becomes fed up and they decide to take action. So leadership, you are the ones who have the tools of power, you have the sword, you have everything. Do something to bring this down. That's all we can do, appeal to you. But we got God in heaven. So with that, we bring the curtains down on the show. Do have yourself a lovely morning. Remember, at around 11, we'll have the Daughters of the Kingdom. They'll be talking about some of the things that are happening in the world and in the kingdom. Do have yourself a lovely morning.